Okay, now I'm recording. Sorry about that. Good morning, everyone. My name is Mike Bryan. I'm the Youth Engagement Manager for CyberUp. This morning, we are going to be presented with some information on digital forensics. This is part one of a two-part series. This one is focusing on the FTK Imager. My special guest that will be presenting is Anastacia Webster from the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, and she works in their Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency. Please pay attention to her, and if you have questions, feel free to put them in the chat, and I will ask them of her when she finishes her presentation, or maybe she'll look at them and see them. But either way, if you have questions, you can throw them in the chat if you don't feel like asking the question at the end of the presentation. Anastacia, I will let you take it away.
Hi, everybody. I hope you guys are doing well. Real quick, I'm probably not going to get to your questions during the presentation just because I have so much to cover with you guys today. Just a little bit to manage your expectations before we begin. This is a very high-level overview of digital forensics. It's the highest that I can give you, just scratching the surface. But my hope is that if I give you guys the tools that you guys need to replicate what I'm showing you guys today, you guys can go in and start digging in on the details. So today we are going to be taking a look at FTK Imager. Let me go ahead and share the application. Actually, hold on. Don't want to share my whole screen here. You guys can see my whole screen, right? It's not, is there a way that I can only share VMware Fusion with this?
Maybe if you can you pull it out and make it its own window?
No.
No. I've never had anybody share VMware in one of these, so I don't know the answer to that question.
Let me because I'm thinking I'm sharing this one specific application, but it's kind of sharing everything here, which we do not want.
So I typed in, can you share VMware on WebEx? It says VMware Horizon isn't supported with WebEx. And sending video in WebEx meetings may not work smoothly. That's all Google has to say about it.
Okay, hold on. Let me just clean up some stuff here. And then I'll get back to here. Okay. So let's go ahead. We'll share. Let me do something real quick. Sorry about this. I didn't realize that this would be an issue. Okay. Okay. So let me go ahead and make this. Oops. Okay, so let me just go ahead. We'll make this thing full screen. Okay, so what I'm going to be sharing with you guys today is actually a couple of tips and tricks on how to start using Access Data FTK Imager. We're going to take a look at some open resources. The cool thing about FTK Imager is it is a, is this little, can you guys see this little box too, or hopefully you guys can't see it. FTK Imager is a previewing and imaging tool, and it's actually available free for download on the accessdata.com website. So all you'd have to go to is accessdata.com, product download, scroll to FTK Imager, and you guys could go to the download page. Once here, all you guys would have to do is download the version 4.5, and then you guys will have exactly what I'm going to be using in today's demonstration. You can also see that there's release notes, and it comes with its own user guide, which I think is really cool. It's a free resource that comes with its own user guide. It can help you guys start digging into and even going beyond what we're going to cover today, because again, it's just scratching the surface. One of the other tools I'll be talking about in the next presentation is actually going to be Autopsy, but I wanted to share it with you guys now, just in case you guys want to download it now. It is also a free open source digital forensics tool, and that's what's going to be the subject of part 2 of this presentation. We also have this website I highly recommend. DFIR training, digital forensics and incident response. This website is great because they'll actually give you access to practice images. So it's not everybody has access to images for students to play around on. So you guys can come here, go to practice, and there's tons of images available for you guys to look at. The ones that we're going to be taking a look at today are from DFIR Madness. So this one is the one that we're going to be taking a look at. And if you guys would click this blue link down here, it'll actually take you to the DFIR Madness website. So this was actually more recently put together. Sorry, let me scroll all the way up here. But it's actually pretty much a complete course into how to go about doing digital forensics. And this one actually has more of an emphasis on malware analysis and even some network analysis thrown in there as well. So we're going to be kind of scratching the surface. Again, I know that this one was a kind of a complex topic to choose, but I wanted to give you guys something to really dig into the meat of digital forensics. So I highly recommend saving these, and if you guys want to, at the end of this presentation, I'll just drop all the links in the chat box. I can see Amber is doing it right now. Okay, so once you've downloaded everything onto your virtual machine, both Access Data, FTK Imager, and Autopsy work best on a Windows operating system. So that's the reason why I'm doing a virtual machine, because I myself have a Mac. So once we have downloaded it, it should appear on our desktop. You're also going to want to make sure that you get the images from DFIR Madness. So in your own time, you guys can go through, read the purpose, the target audience, and all this fun stuff that he's included. But at the bottom, he also has available for you guys to download the images that we're going to be taking a look at. So the image that we're going to take a look at today is going to be this disk image. We'll also be taking a look at the desktop image if we have enough time. But once you guys have downloaded these, then you guys can start uploading and exploring in FTK Imager. So I actually downloaded both of mine into just a case folder that I made, case 001, because that's what DFIR Madness had labeled it. And you can see here are my image files here. They are encase image files. And this is my desktop image files. Now, the cool thing about an image file, or the image file, you can see here that there's a difference between this file and the previous file and the way that the image files were split. This has to do with processing and space. And so in the previous image file that you saw, there was 2 files. It was split along two separate files, and in the other file, it's split along 4 files. The file will also come with a text pad. And this text pad is actually juicy with information that can already kind of help you start to understand what you're looking at before you even get into FTK Imager. So a couple different things we can see right off the bat, that this particular image was created by FTK Imager. So that's awesome, because that's a tool that we're going to be looking at today. We also see case information. This is information that's supplied by the user. So in this case, it's going to be D for Madness. He went in there and he's the one that filled in all of the case information. All of this information is arbitrary, right? It's set by the user that's using FTK. What isn't arbitrary is what comes after. Now, this is all of the information for the DC image. So we can see the source type, it's physical. We can see how many cylinders it has, the tracks per cylinder, the sectors per track, the bytes per sector, the sector count. So already we can kind of start getting an idea of the type of space that we're looking at and the type of data that we're going to be seeing on here. We can see the source data size. So there's a lot of things that are going to be stored on this particular image. We can see the sector count. Again, that just kind of reaffirms that there's a lot of stuff that there's a lot of places we can look for evidence items. Also very important, we have our MD5 and SHA1 checksums and hashes. We'll take a brief look at these today, but checksums are very important in digital forensics, because when we create an image with something like FTK Imager, we have to go before potentially the court to establish that this evidence that we're presenting is best evidence. So in order to do that, we need to show that what we're presenting to the court in place of the original, in this case a hard drive, that this copy that we're working from is nearly identical to the original. So the way that we do that is we take a hash, while we image it. We'll do our analysis on the image. We'll take a hash after, and those two hash values should match. If they don't match, then it means that somehow along the way we spoiled the case, or we spoiled that particular file. Typically, when we make images of evidence items, we'll make more than one, just in case something like that does happen. But checksums and hashes, very important in digital forensics. You can also see where or when we started the acquisition process and when it finished. So this gives us an accurate date and time of when we went in and imaged it. And then it gives us these records here, which is just pretty much any time we go in and verify the hashes. And you guys will see kind of what that looks like in a second. Okay, is everybody kind of following along? I know I'm kind of just trying to jump in here. So once you guys have downloaded FTK Imager onto your guys' devices, you guys will be able to open it up. There's no special installation needed. It's pretty much just following the little setup wizard, and you guys can change folders on where you guys want the stuff stored. That's fine. I usually just store everything for the desktop when I'm using a virtual machine, so it's easy to find. I'm not going to go too much into the environment of FTK, because we could spend just a whole class section going over, each one of these aspects of FTK Imager. But I wanted to get into, how do we go about using FTK Imager? How do we go about adding evidence items? I will post a link to Access Data. They have a really good YouTube channel where they actually go over, every aspect of the FTK Imager platform. So to add evidence in FTK, we need to go to, we can either go to the toolbar here, which is add evidence item, or we can also go to file, add evidence item. This is just, the longer way of doing it. We'll go to image file because that's what we just downloaded off the D4 Madness website. But you can see there's a couple different types of content that FTK Imager will accept and allow you to view. So it's not just image file. We can do physical drives, we can do logical drives, and we can do contents of a folder. But we're going to go ahead and add our image files. I'm going to browse to my specified folder, which it's already kind of open for me. And every single time we go in to add a image item, you want to pick the very first image if it's in a nice stack like this, right? If the file has been split. If you try and add, let's say, the desktop EO2 file, you're going to get the following issue when you go to add it. Okay, it's going to give you a, wait, this isn't right. So make sure that you always add that, that EO1 file. So let's go ahead and add, actually, let me add this one, and I'm also going to go in and add our other evidence item real quick. Okay, so now we have both of our evidence items in our evidence tree. Just so you can, take a look here at the basic setup. We have our evidence tree, we have file list, we have properties, which I'm going to actually expand a little bit because this is very important. Pretty much what we're going to be doing in here is looking at properties. And we have our little hex viewer over here. So let's go ahead and take a look into some of these files. So if we just click on these, we can see the information that we saw from the text file. That's all in here, and it should match what's in the text file. And you guys can check back and forth between the two. We can also see the hashes that have been verified in here. If we want to re-verify the hashes, we go up here, we click Verify Image Drive. It'll take a couple seconds, so I'll just let this process in the background. But it will go and verify whether or not the hash values match or not. And they should match because, again, we are going to be presenting this potentially to the court, and it must be a bit-for-bit copy, and it must be forensically sound and best evidence. Once we start expanding these evidence items, you can see that there's a difference between the two. First off, in the number of partitions that are contained within each image, right? The desktop image, we can see 4 different partitions. And on the CD or on the DC drive, or on the DC image, we can see 2 partitions, okay? We can also see the relative sizes of each of the partitions. If we go through and click on it, we can get starting sector counts and sector counts for each partition. We can get some partition GUIDs when we go through. But it's going to depend upon as well the type of, what you see really is going to depend upon the type of file systems that are, or the file system that's running on that particular image, and the associated properties with it. So let's go ahead and bust out partition 1 and partition 2. Okay, so in our dc.eo1 image file, we can see before we even, oops, hold on, let's see, I think, nope, it hasn't finished yet. We can see before we even actually start getting into the file that there's this little message off to the side, which is NTFS, which is the new technology file system from Microsoft. So this usually indicates that we're doing something with Windows, right? So before we even before we even start getting into the weeds of the image, we already kind of know what type of computer file system we're going to be looking at. If we expand partition 1, we can see a bunch of different folders, and it's kind of interesting, but there's tons of places to look in here. But the information that's listed down here should pretty much match what you guys see in here, right? So there should be 5 evidence items that are contained within this folder. And we can see the associated file paths as well. So pretty much every single time you take steps into this folder or into this tree, you'll start to see those same steps repeat down here. So we just finished our hash verification, and we can compare the hash values to see if they match, and they do. And that's great, right? Because now we know that we're operating from a sound forensic evidence copy. And again, all of that stuff is going to be stored in that particular folder. When we go and look, it's going to have a new date and time for when we ran the, or when we processed, or when we tried to verify the image, and that's all going to be stored in that TXT file. Okay, so now that we're busting down into the meeting here, you'll start to see different things as you click through it, and you'll notice the windows change, right? Depending upon what you're clicking on and what you're looking at. So if we bust this out, we can see a lot of things within partition 1 that could have a treasure trove of information for us to look at. But I'm going to go ahead and dial into partition 2 because it's gonna have a lot more for us to look at. So once you start busting into the partition, again, we're in partition 2, we're in no name NTFS. And again, the NTFS is the file system that we're working with. We're going to mainly be operating out of the root folder because this is pretty much, the God folder of our device. So once we're in here, we really operate off of, somebody telling us, hey, this is what's happening with our particular device. This is the types of things that we're seeing. How can you help us, right? So in the scenario posed by D for Madness, they recognized that there was a suspicious file share, something that was not supposed to leave their particular little network did leave the network, and it was this file right here, a secret file folder. Because this file left, this is going to be, because the file left, we know that we're going to have to be looking for traces of that file leaving the system. And in this case, the file share folders kind of just stand out, among the other folders. But if you don't know what you're looking for, and then you're going in blind, then you could spend literally just tons of time like going through each one of these folders, which is madness. So now that we're in our secret folder here, again, just keeping tabs on the file path down here at the bottom. Apologies for the siren. Hold on. Sorry about that. Happens every now and then. Now we can go in and start taking a look at a bit more information, okay? Let's just take a look at the information for the secret folder. Already we can see file size, date accessed, date created, date modified. So these are very important, right? If we're trying to establish, hey, here's when this particular folder was created, here's all the contents that it contained, and then here's when it left the network. Those are all going to be questions that we need to answer, and some of this information contained within the properties pane will allow us to answer that. There's actually tons of information in the properties pane that's very, very fruitful, that could help us in our investigation. Now, if you don't know what something is in the properties pane, the cool thing about FTK is it does have a little kind of dictionary, and it is a very simplified dictionary. So if anything else is needed, the best resource to consult would be Google. So we can see when this particular folder was accessed, created, and modified, and we can also see that there's a couple content items within the folder. So we have Beth secret.txt, nojerry.txt, portal gunplans.txt, and Szechuan sauce.txt. I just clicked on the Beth_secret.txt file, and you can see that our viewing pane over here changed from hex to actually some text, and this is actually the text of this particular document. We can take a look at each one, just so you guys can get the hint. But here's the real secrets documents that left this particular network, and these are the particular documents that were obtained by somebody, right? Now, if we actually start looking through the file, we can take a look at the date that these files were created, accessed, modified, but we can also take a look at the NTFS information, noting when the files were created, modified, accessed, and changed on the MFT record, right? The master file table records. These dates right here should align more closely with these dates up here. Okay, so we can see 9/18/2020. I can't even note down the time just because we're operating off in this window, but 9/18/2020. So those ones look pretty good. Okay, and there's other date and time stamps in here as well that we can, also take note of. But these should pretty much be around the same date and time stamps. Now, if we go up here to BethSecret.txt, we can do the same thing, right? We start seeing, okay, 9/18/2020. Okay, that looks legit. It looks the same as the last file. But when we scroll down here, we can see that the master file table record is different from just our general information on the file. So what this is indicative of is something called time stomping. Gosh, it's escaping me. So basically what this is doing is it's going through and putting a stop on the time, right? It's actually going in and altering these time values. So typically when we see something like time stomping, it indicates that something fishy is going on the device, okay? So even before we get into an actual analysis tool like FTK or in this case autopsy, which we're going to be talking about in part 2, we can start narrowing down, specific issues that might be, indicative of suspicious activity. So when we would see a file like this, it triggers the alarm bells because, now we know, hey, something's not right. Something's changing the times here between our master file table records and just our general session information or general file information. So again, just before we even get into something like FTK, we already kind of have that knowledge. So real quick too, before I kind of run out of time here, I did want to show you guys just where that that verification result will save to and how you guys can access in the future. So when you guys verify, hey, yeah, this particular image is forensically sound, it's going to save it into your in this case dc.eo1 or txt file. So pretty much certain actions that you take within FTK Imager on the particular evidence item will appear here. And this is good, right? Because as long as these hashes keep matching, it means that I have not changed anything within my evidence item. And again, when you go before judge and jury, when you testify in a case, they're going to be looking for, those trails that established, hey, Anastacia didn't change anything during the scope of her investigation or during the process of her investigation. Okay, so I think that's all I'm going to share with you guys today. I know it was like trial by fire. I'm sorry that it was so much, but I really wanted to give you guys, the highest level overview of what you guys can do with something like FTK Imager, and how you guys can, start playing around with it by yourself. Whenever there's a free software that can do something cool, I usually try and learn about it, and especially because this is something that you guys can use to create your own forensic image. Maybe you want to mess around with your device and create a forensic image of, a computer that you have, and you want to go through it. So there's limitless possibilities with what you can do with FTK Imager. And if you get really good with FTK Imager and some of the other open source tools that are available, that's actually a really great career in cybersecurity. A lot of people think, oh, I want to be a pen tester. Pen testers on the scene, right? I got to be doing some kind of operations, but a lot of what you see has to be investigated by somebody, right? Incident response, that's pretty much where digital forensic investigators lie. But we're going to be the people that are responding to those incidents to figure out the root cause of the problem, right? We're the ones that are going in, looking at all the log files we possibly can, all traces on the image for evidence item. And potentially the cases that you're working on will go to court, and it'll you'll have to present in court, which will be a lot of fun. And once you present your evidence to the court, judge or jury will make some final ruling on the guilt or innocence of whatever a defendant in the case is being charged with. So, do we have any questions?
Are there any resources online or free to learn how to use FTK Imager from the 0 to 50?
Yes, hold on. Let me, there's actually a great YouTube channel. Access Data has its own YouTube channel. And they regularly post videos for how to go about using FTK Imager and any other one of their products. Now once you start getting past FTK Imager, there's 3 different, or actually you could see there's a lot of different proprietary software that comes from Access Data. So FTK Imager is free, which is great. A lot of people use it. Once you start getting past FTK Imager, you're going to have to start looking at different products if you're going to go along the open source route. And there are tons of open source products out there. So in order to do forensics, you don't need to have, these really costly tools. You can use what's open and what's available. And there's just to throw this out too, I don't want to endorse any one particular product, but there's also Ncase, which is another forensics platform. They got a whole suite of tools. There's Magnet Forensics, Axiom Magnet Forensics. They got a whole host of tools. So there's a bunch of different places where you can find digital forensics tools, and some of them will be free, like Autopsy and FTK Imager. You'll just kind of have to hunt those down.
Anybody else have questions?
That's a good question. What kinds of certifications are needed to be in a forensic field? So there's a couple different certifications that are out there. Right now, it's kind of interesting for forensics as a profession. Most of the certifications exist around the particular platforms that you're using, right? So you can get certified as a digital forensic examiner using Access Data FTK products. You can get another certification from Ncase and Axiom Magnet. So that's kind of where it's mainly contained right now around the digital forensics platform products. There are some organizations that also have certifications. Some of them are like international organizations on, let's say, Windows forensics. They're gonna, it kind of differs, I guess, depending upon what you're looking for. But the cool thing about these certifications, at least for FTK Image, or at least for the suite of FTK products. Believe it or not, back when I was a student, FTK, in order to get that certification, it was free. You could actually take that certification and get it for free. Today, I think it costs $100, but you get like 2 attempts to take the FTK certification. So any type of certification that shows that you know how to use the software, and that you at least fundamentally understand some of the principles behind forensics, that's going to get you in the door with a lot of folks for interviews.
I've got another question in the chat. Can you repeat the tools that you just listed?
The tools. Oh, okay. So the tools that I listed, so there's a couple of different tools. There's FTK, the Access Data FTK suite of products that I showed you guys. There's Ncase. Ncase has its own
How do you spell
platform.
that?
Here, I could spell it. I'll put it in the chat. Ncase. They got, their own platform. And then there's Axiom Magnet. Axiom Magnet right now is kind of the hot one. A lot of folks are using Axiom Magnet, just to throw that out there. It's actually a really great platform. I've used that one too. I've used actually all of the ones that we've listed. So they all have their own merits. And I can't throw my hat behind any one. But I will say I do like Autopsy because again, it's free. I don't have to pay for it. And there's some features on Autopsy that are just amazing, in terms of timelines and different things that we'll talk about in the next presentation. But another cool thing about Autopsy is they oftentimes will have open training sessions. So I think right in the midst of the pandemic, they had a huge user training session on, hey, do you want to learn how to do forensics with Autopsy? Come take our training session. And thousands of people were on that call, and it was really great. And I think they as well posted some of that session on YouTube. So, um, look at those YouTube channels here, because a lot of these companies have YouTube channels. And if you guys are interested in digital forensics as a whole, there's a lot of different events out there, whether it's from SANS or whether it's from any one of the communities that exists in digital forensics. There's always, a way for you to get dialed in. I'm pretty sure too that there's a digital forensics, what is it, Discord or Slack? I'm pretty sure it's Discord that is available through either SANS or that website, D4 digital forensics.
Okay, I've got another comment/question. Using tools are great. How do we get better with analysis? Tools are used to capture images and process them.
Okay, so analysis is actually something that you have to finesse through, just educating yourself on computers in general, right? Like I mentioned a lot of terms like cylinders, sectors, MFT records. What is all that? The cool thing that I like about studying digital forensics is it gets you a lot more intimately familiar with, a computer. How does a computer work? Where does a computer store certain things versus other things? And I'm not, they have books out there that are available for you guys to look at: Windows forensics and Mac forensics, and they have mobile forensics, cloud forensics. There's a whole network, network forensics. There's a whole suite of books out there that you guys can take a look at. But there's also so many, so many other places. There's tons of content on YouTube that's really good. I've seen, classes and courses pop up on things like Coursera and Udemy. So it really just, it depends upon, how much you guys are willing to either spend on, taking that particular class, or, how much you guys are willing to follow along, somebody on YouTube, going through the analysis portion of it.
Okay, so here's another one. SANS Institute has forensic courses, but the price is too high for beginners. So for a beginner person, which section should we focus on more?
That's actually a good question. It's difficult to say. I would say for me, I'd follow my interest, right? Follow your interest first. And don't, I know I kind of showed you guys one of the a little bit more complex digital forensic story here, because we're just jumping straight into malware analysis. Um, uh, but maybe you should start off with just host, right? Just start off with understanding the host, understanding one host, understanding one, like Windows, right? How those computers look, where Windows stores certain types of information, and then go from there, right? Because you can get really into the weeds of things very quickly and very confused depending upon, what you're looking at and what you're familiar with. So start on what's easier first, and then reinforce, what you've learned before moving on to anything, more complex.
And then a comment from one of, oh, never mind. That was from somebody else. Who else has comments or questions?
Yes, that's exactly so. You do need to, the question is basically we need to understand file structure of Windows, how Windows files work, etc. Yes, all of that, right? You need to fundamentally understand how things are stored, where they're stored, how people can hide information, right? Like one of the things that I showed you guys in today's video showed that something was being manipulated, right? We like to think of computers as being bias-free, right? So computers oftentimes just provide that third-party objective point of view in terms of, they can't argue for the guilt or innocence of a particular individual, right? But it's there are ways to kind of, go in and mess around with those logs and mess around with the data. So again, going back to just making sure you understand, how everything is sorted, whether it's through Windows or any of the other operating systems, where you expect to find things versus, where you're seeing some anomalies.
Here's a question. What's the difference between the FTK 7.4.2 and the FTK Imager 4.5 you just showed us?
Okay, that's actually a good question. So FTK Imager is an imaging, processing, you can kind of look through the case and you can make images with FTK Imager. FTK 7.4.2, that's where we can actually start getting into the weeds and doing some analysis on the case. So you use different products for different things, right? You would use FTK Imager to get into or to take a look at the image. Typically from FTK Imager, I'll pull different files from there, like the SAM file, the security file, the software file, the ntuser.dat files, and then I'll open those in something like Registry Viewer. Okay, Registry Viewer allows me to go in and determine what users are doing what. It allows me to understand what the time zone is, of the particular image that I'm looking at. It allows me to understand different security actions that were taken on the device. It basically allows me to take a look at that particular device's registry, right? So that's really what Registry Viewer is. And then whatever I find from there, I can use to help my analysis and investigation in FTK. So, there are 3 different separate tools that I just talked to you guys about. The only one that's free out of all of those is FTK Imager. FTK 7.4.2, that is proprietary. That costs some bucks. Because in order to access and use that and have that work, there usually has to be a network dongle attached to it that you guys would get from Access Data.
Who else has questions or comments? Here's another comment or question. Using steganography method, people can hide their messages. So using FTK tools and many other tools available online, we can easily get the information regarding that particular piece of cake right.
Yeah, so actually FTK, the FTK, FTK autopsy, FTK Imager, it does allow you to take a look at different anomalies that you see within files, right? So let's say I have a file that has a bad extension. FTK will flag that. It'll say, hey, this file has a bad extension. There might be something going on. And because you can view the data in different ways, right? Like I can view it in its natural state, I can view it in hex, I can view it, any associated metadata. There's many different ways that you can try and piece together, hey, something's not right with this file. They're doing something fishy here. And that's usually what, what leads you down that investigative path is something's not right, something's flagging, something, the dots aren't connecting here.
Cool. Anybody else have any last comments or questions for Anastacia before we let her get back to her day? Is it all right to post the links? I will drop a few. Yeah, you can post links. Yeah, if you have tools that are useful, then go for it.
Again, these tools are free. It doesn't, take a look at them, download them, play with them. Actually, the more that you play with it and the more that you question what you're seeing and why everything looks that way, you can find out some really cool things. And I can't encourage you guys enough to just, play with it. You'll get better and you'll notice, hey, this, if you compare two files to each other and things don't look right on one file versus another file. It's a really great way to go through and learn, not just about digital forensics, but also just about computers in general and how they work and how everything's stored and um, uh, what that what that all looks like.
Great. Thanks everyone that added links in the chat. That's very helpful. I appreciate you doing that. Got some applause from Mr. Joseph Williams. Thank you, Joseph. A little celebration from Hanalei. I love it. Yeah, this was great, Anastacia. Thank you so much for taking some time out of your day to spend with us and give us a great introduction to that really cool tool. I really appreciate you joining us. So the next time that we are doing, when is that? So the next Digital Forensics Part 2, where Anastacia is going to focus on autopsy, is going to be on March 17th. And that is also listed on Eventbrite, so you can find that there. And I'll try to send out the link earlier than I did this morning. It got stuck in my drafts and I just didn't see it. So I apologize. But everybody's saying thank you. How forensic plays an important role in CTFs.
Ooh, actually, there's a lot of CPFs today that have some kind of CT or digital forensics aspect to it. Hold on, there's actually a really good guidebook from somebody that I just came across that has some. Hold on, let me see if I can find it. If not, I can send it to Amber after the meeting, and he'll post it. But yeah, there could be a digital forensics, component to whatever CTF that you're working on. I know in California, where I actually teach this stuff at California State University, San Bernardino, there's actually a whole competition just around digital forensics. So it's going to depend upon, what they're using. But again, it doesn't, in my opinion, it doesn't really take much, all it really takes to get really good at digital forensics is sitting there, going through, putting in the time, playing with the tools, figuring out what you can see, what looks different. And, a lot of our students, I think actually for 2020, our students, was it 2020? No, I think it was 2019, our students actually took home like the gold in like a bunch of different categories for ITC, which is a competition that we kind of host with or I should say California State University, or no, Cal Poly hosts it, and then there's a bunch of Cal States that also participate in it.
All right, any last minute comments or questions, folks? Now is your chance. Are there forensics challenges and images other than the defer madness and I don't know what that is.
Yeah, so there are other challenges and images that are out there. One of the most comprehensive websites that I've seen was from Defer Madness. A lot of times they just give you images, right? They'll give you images with kind of no background. which is fine. You know, you can sift through and you can look through those images as well. But I really like the way that D for Madness actually structured theirs because it makes it, you know, it makes it something logical for you guys to follow. And you know, they also posed questions and they, you know, have different labs and walkthroughs that you guys can do in order to, you know, understand what happened in that particular case. And it's really cool too that the case from V for Madness because it does have a networking component to it. So you do have to do some PCAP analysis, you know, actually getting into into the network logs there and figuring out what happened and which is the you know, suspicious IPs. So it's really I can't give enough kudos to D for Madness because it's a great way for you guys to go through it and learn.
All right. Well, I think that seems like everybody is satisfied with these questions and comments. And again, Anastacia, thank you so much. This was very enlightening. Everybody enjoyed it a lot. Lots of great comments and lots of thank yous in the chat. So again, the March 17th will be part 2 of this. So we hope to see you there. And we wish everyone a happy, what is today? Happy Wednesday, happy hump day. If you have students that are interested in cybersecurity, we have a really cool program called the Power Up Cyber Games. It is a series of CTFs for middle schoolers and high schoolers. If you're interested, go to our website. It's just wecyberup.org, really simple, wecyberup.org. And then you can find under youth stuff the information about the Power Up Cyber Games. And then, of course, we're on social media, so feel free to interact with us there. It's pretty much at WeCyberUp or CyberUp for all of the handles on social media. And we're on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram. I feel like I'm forgetting one. Anyway, we're all over the web. So after this, after I stop recording, I'm going to upload this to our website. So it'll be there under our videos section or webinars section. And then I'm also going to put it on our YouTube channel. So you'll be able to find it there. So everyone, have a great rest of your day. Again, thank you, Anastacia. This was wonderful. And we will hopefully see everyone back here on the 17th. I know me and Anastacia will be here for sure. So we hope that we see the rest of your pretty faces as well. Thanks a lot, everyone, and have a great day.